Hello, everyone. This is Ari Moshe Wolf of Heart and Soul Centered Astrology. Today, I'm going to offer an overview of Jupiter in Cancer through the 12 houses. Jupiter anywhere is vision. It's our perspective and an insight, our understanding of reality. And there's an innate optimism that grows with Jupiter as we start to see more of the picture. We expand our vision. We see that life is much more than what we thought it to be. So as we see more of reality, what was otherwise limited in terms of our beliefs or our ideas about our life open up, and we see, there's actually more possibilities, more potential for growth and realization in this world. And so we're always expanding into a more optimistic way of thinking that goes hand in hand with expanding and increasing our insight and our knowledge of reality. Expanding our vision is always going to open up more doors for more experience, more opportunity, more growth that otherwise wasn't available. So it's always helpful with Jupiter to kind of contemplate, what is my mindset, right? Am I holding on to a belief, an old way of thinking? Are there opportunities for growth and new potentials right in front of me that I'm not seeing or embracing, or I'm not willing to make a change because I'm so stuck in an old mindset? Very important reflection for Jupiter. Now, Cancer orients around identity and our sense of security. There can be a tendency in Cancer to kind of be afraid of too much new, too much at once, wherein we will protect and incubate and kind of hold a sense of safety and security because we don't want to feel too threatened. So that archetypal child will want to make sure, where's mommy, where's daddy, my first day at nursery, am I going to be safe, am I going to be okay? We're dealing with what is home and what is familiar to us. And so we literally can't emotionally let in that which we are not able to assimilate in our sense of self. If it's too threatening to our sense of self, we can't emotionally take it in. That's what Cancer essentially deals with, how we're emotionally integrating our experience, and thus what we do and can assimilate and integrate to become more integrated as a human being, to feel more secure in our identity, to sense, okay, I'm here, I'm in this new environment, life has changed, but I know who I am, I'm safe, I'm okay, my sense of self is stable. But what we can't take in as well, we can't integrate, I can't hear, I can't receive this, I can't open up to this. We need to protect that vulnerability so we can grow in time, slowly, carefully, and maybe later. And that's a developmental process of Cancer, and the wisdom of knowing how to go within and create that sense of stability and security within, but also knowing how to mature that as we grow into more adulthood. So that's the essence of the Cancer journey, where we're constantly adapting to change, learning how to stay grounded in a sense of security and continuity. I'm safe, I'm stable, I'm not exposing myself to too much unknown at once. And at the same time, one foot is in the next moment. One foot is in the constant movement of change. I gotta feel my emotions, I gotta process it. What is secure, what is unchanging? What can I hold on to in the midst of all these different changes? Now, what happens with Jupiter and Cancer, 2 points. We need to really understand that our emotional beliefs will really limit our world, right? We're going to create a whole belief system and a vision of the world according to what is safe and what is known and what is familiar. And on the one hand, that's beautiful, right? Like there's nothing inherently wrong with that. But then that also limits the potential for more experience, more opportunity, more vision, more perspective, more insight, more growth. So there's a need to kind of push ourselves to quote unquote travel out of our home space, or to experience our home space as wider and bigger than what we've known. In all cases, we're combining that Sagittarius and that Cancer archetype. That's an inconjunct. So it's that expansive energy of Sag manifesting within the realm of Cancer. So that tension is to actually push us just beyond, to the extent that we're able to, the limited emotional assumptions and beliefs that we've created around our reality. And this is going to be true in general, right? Like in general, most Jews will feel sympathetic to Jewish causes. Most Muslims will feel sympathetic to Muslim causes. You're gonna feel a sense of resonance and identity with those that are familiar to you, that resonate with who you believe yourself to be. Your identity then literally determines where home is, where familiarity is, where safety, what you feel is a part of you and what you feel that's far and that's not a part of me. And I've been speaking a lot to those themes. So Jupiter in Cancer is expanding ourselves beyond that. What I'm going to do in this video is highlight two essential dimensions. One, where we're going to be limited by our emotional beliefs and assumptions. And so basically, in this way, what's true is true because it feels true. Like, it's familiar to me, and so it's true. There's no rationality to it. There's no growth. There's no kind of exposure to a new way of thinking or an expansion beyond the frame of our little world. It's true because that's what feels true. The example that I've given here before is when I was a child, I have a distinct memory of having a sleepover at my friend's house. And in the morning, his mother gave us food. And I remember feeling very tangibly that his mother didn't feel like a mother. It wasn't like, that's his mother, that's his experience, that's his world, right? Like, she's a mother for him. But there was a very tangible sense of, this isn't mother, because she was very thin, my mother was very heavy, and I have an association with mother as big and heavy, whereas this mother was very thin. And so in the world of a child, of course I knew that this is my friend's mother, but in the emotional, subjective world of a child, that isn't mother. It's not motherly, it's not mother, right? Imagine that kind of immature perspective expanded as an adult, right? We feel something because, that's what's familiar, that's what's known, but then that becomes like a belief. So it doesn't matter what's happening in the world. It doesn't matter what the headlines are, the media, or the articles, or the actual live evidence of, this is what I know. This is the world that I've grown up with, that I'm familiar with. This is the summer camp I went to. These are the things that I've learned. This is my identity. And so it's true. It can be very hard to challenge that because it's not just a belief system, it's our sense of self, it's our sense of identity. So we're going to highlight that dimension. Then we're going to highlight what it means, what it looks like to grow just beyond that. And what happens with Jupiter, we don't really render an existing frame of reality to be wrong. It's more so that we expand our consciousness just to include more than just that, right? So more of the truth. So, okay, what I knew is that's true. Okay, that is my mother. But then we kind of open up to, what is it like for this child? And we watch, this child grew up with this mother and this is their experience. We begin to apprehend a more inclusive reality where we recognize, this is what it's like for you to be at home too, and we can appreciate that. And then suddenly for us, what is different than what we know feels a little bit less scary and threatening. It doesn't render what we know wrong. It just sort of reframes it. Reframing is a great phrase because reframing, it's you have the same picture, you're just looking at it at a different way. And frame really accentuates different qualities of the picture, right? The color, the style of the frame will bring out certain qualities. And what happens if you just take the frame away entirely, right? There are so many different ways of looking at the same thing that will simply expand our insight. It won't make us wrong. Jupiter, we don't really like being wrong anyway, right? Like a Jupiter thing is you don't want to go through life thinking, I'm going to be wrong, right? I'm going to learn something new. That doesn't feel very encouraging to feel like I've got it all wrong. Now I got to start over again and learn something new. The actual journey of expansion and growth is an increase of insight. It simply says your vision has been narrow, open up a little bit. So I was thinking when I was preparing this in my mind, there's this one line in the I Ching that's a part of hexagram 20, overseeing or seeing, right? It's kind of likened to standing on a tower, kind of Aquarian actually, but sort of looking and observing, right? But this line right here is peeking through the cracks of a door. It says you're sort of uncommitted, you're looking through the cracks of the door, you have a very limited vision from those cracks, but the imagery is, I'm afraid, I'm insecure, I'm kind of in my insular world, and I'm not ready to expose myself to what's actually out there in that other room. So I'm kind of keeping myself protected, looking from the old way of thinking. So I can't really see what is over there. And this is the thing, with Jupiter, we need to be willing to take some risks. Leaps of faith, we often hear it, right? To take some risks, to enter into a new territory that isn't just looking through the crack. Am I safe? Because Am I safe? Is it going to be okay? Am I going to be threatened? Are they going to hate me? Am I going to have what I need? Is this going to be too unfamiliar? Am I going to feel alienated? Like, there's so much. I'm trying to know it all from where I am. Jupiter says you're going to learn more by opening up to the journey and actually embracing that edge of insecurity. That's the journey here. So contemplate as we go through this in your own chart. Where is there the opportunity for life to open up? By way of thinking about what you've known, the world that is familiar and safe, what is accustomed to you, where your identifications might be very strong, and just being willing to expand and open to new experience, new ways of thinking about yourself and your life that will open the doors to an immense threshold of new opportunity and possibilities for growth. So I'm going to give some time signatures. I'm actually going to do this in this way. I'm going to work with the cardinal houses first, 7th, 4th, 10th. Then the fixed houses, 2nd, 5th, 8th, 11th. And then the mutable houses last, 3rd, 6th, 9th, and 12th. Why? Well, whatever. It's what I want to do. Okay, so check out the timestamps if you want to jump to your signature. I use porphyry houses. So in my house system, you can apply this to whatever house system you use. In porphyry house system, you can have one sign occupying, more than one sign occupying a house. Okay, before I jump in, a couple announcements. I am available for sessions for those that want to do soul work and meet with me for an individual consultation. My sessions are an opportunity to dive very deeply into your soul path. What is it all about? Bring your questions, your prayers, your intentions. We delve in very deeply. It's a prayerful experience of tuning into what is the teaching from a very Jupiter perspective, wanting to see your life from a higher level of consciousness, where we see the innate opportunities for growth embedded in all the different kind of human experiences that we're all working with. So I have that. Relationship readings, long-term soul-to-soul companionship sessions. I have a newsletter that I write. These are articles that I will often write along with these videos. I send them out 2-3 times a month. You can subscribe to that as well. I have a self-study training program and many classes. I have several new classes that I've just uploaded. Uranus and long-term memory, a few interesting classes on Venus, one class on the Venus-Pluto relationship in the natal chart. So you can check all of this out in the description below. All right, let's jump in. Jupiter in Cancer in the first house. So the limits here actually have a lot to do with fear. Think of Cancer in the first house as a very strong emotional reactivity. So we can give 2 examples. One is, imagine a dog, it feels threatened and afraid. So they might run away and hide their tail. So a very, flight kind of reaction, or a fight reaction. They're going to bark at you. We're going to perceive a reality that is threatening, that's going to hurt us. And we're going to have this impulse to, in some way, protect the vulnerable and delicate elements within us. What happens is we're living in a defensive state. I want to make sure I'm secure. I know what I know. I want to protect my identity. So I'm going to be on guard. What happens in that protective state, we miss out on life. Jupiter in Cancer in the first actually asks you to really embrace the edge of vulnerability. What's kind of existential is you're moving forward into a domain of experience that you haven't moved into. And the Cancer question is, am I going to be okay here? Am I going to be safe here? Manifesting in the first house, well, you just got to go. There's a sort of burning your bridges quality. You have to go and make a choice, and that choice means you're not making another choice. So there are opportunities. There's a new path of growth and individuation and experience that wants to open the doors to a much more meaningful and exciting life. If it doesn't feel scary, if it doesn't feel like you're risking something, you're probably not in touch with your own intuition. Check in, connect with where is the path opening up to right now? Where are you called to have more trust in your own intuitive self-leadership? And it's okay to feel vulnerable and scared. Often that just means you're on the right track. Now, let's go to the 7th house. We'll do it in polarities and then we'll go with the squares. So Jupiter in Cancer in the 7th house. The issue here is going to be a very strong attachment to the state of emotional affinity. And this has the effect of not being authentic, not speaking the truth. I like the way we feel. I want you to like me. I want us to feel good with each other. And so we can easily fall into a sort of domestic kind of pattern or situation in our relationships where it's comfortable and it's safe and it's familiar, and we don't want there to be honesty. We don't want there to be change, because if I'm honest, or if you're honest, if I really listen to your authentic, personal, emotional reality, I'm going to feel uncomfortable. We're not wanting to risk rejection and the possibility of change. But what that does is it creates two issues. One, we'll feel emotionally stifled, right? Because that Jupiter need for freedom here, being trapped into a Cancer 7th house situation, will feel stifled. And then some part of us will kind of feel alienated, like, either ourselves or other people in our life will begin to feel dishonest, like we're somewhere else, or there's someone else we want to be with, or the grass is always greener somewhere else, where we can feel understood and accepted for who we are. When we're not relationally authentic, we're going to feel emotionally stifled. And at the same time, any possibility of change or authenticity or honesty can easily be interpreted as rejection. So there's a need in this signature to be emotionally authentic in your relationships. Speak the truth. And it's being able to have enough wisdom and insight and clarity to recognize that the intimacy between you and another person, whatever kind of relationship it is, the intimacy is in the honesty. If we're not honest, there's no possibility of closeness, right? If we're not actually authentic about how we feel, what we need, we engender a sense of disconnect and alienation, and we just hold on. It's a codependency where we're just trying to make sure everything feels good all the time. As per all things Jupiter, there's often this letting go in order to receive quality, right? So, in the first house, you have to let go of fundamentally an attitude. Whatever's keeping us, like a thumb in front of the eye that's keeping us from the path that's here, we have to let go of a negativity or a pessimism or a defensiveness or a fear. In the 7th house, we have to let go of our attachments or ideas, beliefs about what the relationship is or how it should look or who we're supposed to be, the role that I'm supposed to play. A lot of that becomes a belief system that we've tried on that is just a statement of security and familiarity. My identity, I am defined by how you feel about me. And so I'm not going to tell the truth. And often telling the truth isn't like a big deal. It's just telling the truth. Like, how do you feel right now? Hey, honey, do you want to go on a walk? And like internally, I really just need some time by myself right now. I feel like I've been with you all day. I need some solitude. Externally, sure, I love being with you, right? Why? Because that's the expectation, that's the precedent that's been set. And so we get into these situations where it's like closeness, but there's no authenticity. So telling the truth is often just a present moment, being authentic. How do I feel? What's alive right now? And it's safe. The truth is safe. And it allows the relationship to be a path of growth and expansion. It doesn't really matter what happens. It's going to be intimate. Whether it's a yes or a no, it's actually going to bring real intimacy because you're actually present. You're actually here. And then there's not that ongoing alienation of I got to be somewhere else or I can't be understood here. We can feel free. And that's the point with Jupiter anywhere. We want to feel fully free where we are. We only feel fully free with Jupiter if we're eliminating inauthenticity, because when there's inauthenticity, we won't feel free, and we're always going to feel like the path is somewhere else or with someone else. Okay, let's look at Jupiter in Cancer in the 4th house now. This is obviously going to emphasize the state of security, identity, how you live, who you know yourself to be. Now, if your home life, not just like literally where you live, but your home life, how you live, right? What you call home, your sense of family and security, your sense of belonging, how you root, how you ground, how you create a deep sense of security and bonding in your life. If that feels stifling and there's no growth there, if it feels sort of predictable and mundane, then it's likely there's a path that you're not connecting with right now. It would feel very natural to be intuitively in touch with home is a journey of expansion and growth. There's an opportunity for something that's more enriching and authentic to who I am. It's like connecting with your own indigenous essential root. This is what it's like for me to be at home. When your life becomes sort of overly domesticized in a way that isn't true for you. I met someone at Norwalk recently, and she said to me, it's a Liz Green quote, "There's nothing sadder than watching a Sagittarius mow the lawn on a Sunday afternoon." And of course, that isn't necessarily true, but it could be. What that represents is where the home, think about that in terms of Cancer, right, or the fourth house, where the home experience becomes like I'm just fitting into a mold, but it's not indigenous to my own nature. Home is a journey. The bonds, the emotional intimacy, your relationship to the people, to the plants, to the animals, to the trees, to how you live, to the culture of your life itself, is authentic to who you are. And I think it's very easy to settle into a life where internally you feel like, yeah, like home is different than what I'm experiencing. And so there might be two opportunities here. One, actual travel. There might be places to go. There might be avenues or thresholds that want to open up in your life that says, go here, maybe a move or a journey that's going to take you somewhere that's going to teach you more about who you are and how you want to live. And you're going to come back with that renewed insight around, this is what it's like for me to be me. Or in the context of your own home environment, beginning to have realizations of, I can just do things differently. For me, I have actually a whole lot of Sagittarius in my fourth house. Like whenever I reconnect with nature, whenever I spend time, there's a day last week where for whatever reason, one of my daughters didn't sleep, and it was like on and off the whole night. And it was like 5 o'clock or so in the morning, she's awake, and then my other daughter woke up and they're like, let's go. I'm like, okay. So we, left the bedroom and hung out. And I had the thought, guys, let's just go outside. Everyone else is sleeping. Let's just get out of the house. So we took the dog and we went to this forest, and it was so much fun. And I thought, oh my God, I've never got up early morning, right? Before it gets hot, before the sun really rises. There's just a little bit of light. Vesta! There we go. Good girl. I've never gone up this early before the sun rises to just play with my kids. And it was just so great. Like we're walking and my older daughter found like a little slope area, and she said, oh, make sure we don't go down there. And I said, do you think you can walk down there? And she's like, if you help me, So I helped her walk down this steep area, and then eventually she was able to do it by herself. And all kids love playing in nature. And then we found, I didn't even know it existed. There's like a little open field, and there's a plum tree, because I think this whole area used to be farmland that was then left to grow. So we found an actual plum tree, and we were picking and eating plums. That's what Jupiter in the fourth house can feel like, where there's just more opportunity. The whole world opens up, and it's more enriching, it's more authentic, as opposed to the cookie cutter lifestyle. The adventure and the discovery and the expansion happens just exactly where you are. But you need to be able to follow your intuition and sense into, okay, I'm called right now to get outside. I'm called right now to, make this connection. It's interesting because my family actually right now, we're in this big transition process and we need to find a new home. So that's a very interesting personal dynamic for me around my own fourth house Sag. That's it. So Jupiter in the fourth house can feel like your home, where you live, offers the possibility of immense expansion. Just be intuitive about it. Don't try to fit into the cookie cutter mold of what is predictable and what is known. It's not about being surprising and unpredictable innately, but there is a spontaneity to it. The journey, the pilgrimage has to have an element of spontaneity, because day to day, from the perspective of the pilgrimage, you don't really know, and you shouldn't know, who you're going to meet, what's going to happen. A good traveler does not have any fixed plan. So meditate on, what does that look like? What does that feel like? to experience that level of consciousness in your own home. A good traveler has no fixed plans. And so to experience that expansiveness, that possibility in the way that you actually live. And that's why for a lot of souls with Jupiter in the fourth, they will find at times that actually being nomadic or moving around is very natural for them, because it allows them to kind of stay open to the journey and new possibilities open up that maybe wouldn't always open up if you're just in one place. Now, there's another dimension here. There can be a deep restlessness that results in a sort of emotional inauthenticity. The restlessness is, I need to be somewhere else. I need to go somewhere else. But the key is be emotionally authentic where you are. And if that means there's a journey to walk, you'll know that. Or if it means where you are, there's something that wants to open up, you'll know that. But when we're inauthentic about ourselves, meaning not actually connecting to how we feel, our own emotional reality, we're always going to feel like home is a different experience somewhere else. There can be this perpetual sense of feeling like a traveler, right? So you never really feel landed. And while Jupiter has that quality of being a traveler, you also want to feel grounded and nurtured and nourished and cared for and well connected when it's in the fourth house. Jupiter in Cancer in the 10th house. So Cancer in the 10th house speaks to your roles, your responsibilities in life as a caretaker. This could be if it's a job or a work that you're doing, you're tending to caring for other beings, or you could be a parent where your responsibility is literally to care for other beings. The issue with Cancer in the 10th house, on the one hand, can be either a lack of emotional boundaries, so no regulation, no development, no growth, or too much boundaries or too much repression. So being emotionally repressed, I'm stuck in these roles, but I'm actually not feeling cared for. So the responsibilities to care for other beings, but actually internally feeling overstressed, not regulated, not feeling well within yourself. So Jupiter wants to open up the doors to recognize your role, your responsibilities in life, how you're showing up to care for other beings and to be a responsible caretaker also for your own life. Has a lot to do with the systems, the practices, the disciplines, how you regulate your own roles, your own life, your own rhythms, and for those that you're responsible for, there's something much bigger, more meaningful than just the stress or the tension of it. So I want to give an example. I got my dog here. Something that I've developed over several years, because I don't love walking around with a leash all the time. It's so stressful, and of course, there's a lot of training around, how to keep your dog next to you with a leash. But I noticed this one moment, one of the first times I ever experimented taking the leash off. We went to this forest, and I noticed when I took the leash off that she would run ahead, but she would naturally stop and wait for me, right? The dog's tendency was to kind of like explore, but never to run so far away. And I realized it's in the dog's nature to stay close, but also have their freedom to roam. And I think children are like that too, right? They want to have their freedom, but they want to stay close. And if you keep them, children or a dog, literally or metaphorically, on a leash all the time, it's repressing some natural element that wants spaciousness. So I began exploring, what if I give her that freedom to move around, but I work with the commands that we do, like before you eat. And, she waits before she goes on, right? So I would have her stay and then go. Then I would call her back. And I began finding that it was actually a lot easier to discipline her, to stop, to stay, to come back when there is no leash. And so I began practicing that on the road in, safer areas where there's not a lot of traffic. And I found the same is true. Now we're walking, we can go on a road, where there's a lot of traffic, where you have to cross. She'll stop before crossing the road. She knows to stop and wait for my command, right? And I wait, go. And I look and she waits for the go. Yeah. Right now she's sitting next to me because I called her in. But I'm also aware she's a dog. And I'm not like a perfect dog trainer, and she's a dog. So I still got my leash here, and I never travel without it, because if there's another dog that's going to come or something, it could be very easy to, run across the street. So I'm aware, I'm tuning in. I don't want her to run across the street or do something unsafe or dangerous. But I'm always practicing the commands in case something happens, right? So I'm extra cautious. I'm teaching her constantly to stop when I want her to stop. It's constantly being reinforced. So I want to just offer this as an example, and I have actually Jupiter in the 10th house. This is an example of a discipline practice that's actually very expansive. It allows for a lot of freedom. It's an approach, it's a perspective to apply. And it's very different than no discipline, no practice, or just being overly restrictive, right? When you're overly restrictive, no one feels free. When the rules and the structure and the regulations of our life that we impose on others or ourselves feel overly limiting, we will feel alienated. We feel depressed. And that's a big issue with Jupiter and Cancer in the 10th. We can feel very depressed and like we're just kind of doing our day to day, but we don't feel authentic about it. So it's about creating structures that actually open up more freedom. To me, the journey of working with my dog has become very exciting because I'm disciplining myself. I'm sort of strengthening my own authority. I'm building a beautiful bond with her and building trust. And I can feel like she's safe and she also gets to be herself and have that freedom. So that's a thing to work on with ourselves as well. What's the way that you live? Your job, your role as a caretaker, dog person, a family person. What are the structures of your life? There might simply be a more intuitive and authentic way to structure and discipline a meaningful life where you can grow and strengthen in the roles and the work that you're here to do, but in a more authentic way. And this can literally be connecting with, what is my guidance? How am I to show up in my responsibilities? Jupiter and Cancer anywhere, like the issue is when we become overly domesticized according to like a very known pattern, but we're no longer authentic, it feels stifling. So there might be more authentic ways of showing up in your work, in the ways that you're here to hold responsibility, that opens the doors to more freedom and brings more joy, more spontaneity, more authenticity in your lives and those that you're caring for. Wanted to just add an addendum to Jupiter and Cancer in the 10th house. There's a wisdom, an intuitive wisdom for working with structure and limits and rules. And I really want to encourage, don't just take your dog off a leash. Don't do this at home. It takes training and practice, and that's all good things are developmental and take time. And the Jupiter teaching is having the right philosophical and intuitive wisdom and insight to nurture that developmental process and to simply watch how it's going. That is the intuitive use of boundaries, where then we use time and structure and discipline and practice so that in time there's more freedom and there's more spaciousness. Just imagine what that is like in your own life. What kind of structures and boundaries can we apply in our own life that because we're exercising them, it's going to make us feel more free and more authentic in the long term. Final piece. So just now my dog began walking off and she's just sniffing around, looking around. Earlier, I saw her chasing after a squirrel or a bird. Just so nice to see her just sniffing. It's that's what dogs want to do. They want to sniff. And so there's something around the structures and the boundaries that we create in our life that allow for a freedom of movement where we don't feel stifled or chained in. And that's the wisdom, the intuitive wisdom of Jupiter in the signature, to create the kind of structure and discipline in a life that allows us the freedom to explore, to be ourselves, but to know that we're also safe, where we also have the regulations and the rules that will protect us in the ways that we need to be protected. It also dawns on me, you can apply this to Jupiter and Cancer in the 7th house. What happens when we give each other more freedom? Oh, you want something different, right? There's almost am I allowed to be free? Am I allowed to have my own life? That Capricorn first house polarity. Am I allowed to embrace the authority of my own personal life and my own direction in life, free of who you want me to be? We're going to feel very inclined to come back and to reconnect when we don't tether each other because of our emotional bonds and attachments. Whenever anyone or anything in life feels free to be themselves, they're naturally going to love coming back and being together and being around you. Jupiter in Cancer in the 2nd house. So Cancer in the 2nd house, on the one hand, it needs a lot of quiet, internal, sort of introverted space because it's all about emotional self-reliance. The fundamental need and concern is preserving, caring for, tending to, protecting my basic survival needs. So this means creating a very luscious, beautiful, personally authentic and meaningful inner life. But on the other hand, this signature can speak to a lot of stagnation. We kind of dig a little hole in the earth and we get in there and we don't look out because we're afraid if we leave our little protected space, we're not going to have what we need. We're afraid of being too insecure, too vulnerable. I know where everything is. I have all the resources that I need where I am. If I leave where I am, how do I know I'm going to be okay? So we can become very protective of our own security in a way that kind of creates stagnation. So Jupiter says, is there stagnation in your world? Are resources flowing? Do you actually have what you need? There might be an invitation to step out of the insular, isolated world and embrace something new. And that might be scary because you're leaving this known world, but there are more resources, more possibilities for growth. It can actually expand how you live. It can make your living more abundant, more relevant, more nourishing, more essential to what you need if you're willing to take some risks. A good creative example, let's say you need to build a table, right? So how do you find a table? Jupiter wants you to kind of be open to the journey. Go out into the forest, collect some trees, collect some, branches and build something. Depend upon your own internal self-reliance to create a personally, energetically conducive to your own vibration, personally meaningful world. But allow yourself to explore new avenues where new resources and possibilities for survival are available. Often we need to let go in order to receive. That's a basic Jupiter principle. So the letting go here might mean actually letting go of your home or your little world or the hut or the thing that you've created. Because in that letting go, there's something bigger, better, more expensive, more relevant to your own needs. Sometimes this letting go is also a sharing. In this second house, we're building a richness of self-knowledge, of inner resource. But if we don't share that, if we don't circulate it, it creates its own stagnation. So you might have more resources available, more ways of supporting yourself, more ways of actually getting what you need, but you have to kind of get out of your isolation and be willing to share and circulate your energy, 8th house polarity, a little bit more in the world. Now, I want to offer one more correlation here. Jupiter often will have a correlation to not just letting go, but actually losing. Where something's lost, it's taken. And that it could actually feel very traumatic, very intense, almost like that's not Jupiter. But it's a very, I think, a commonly misappreciated or underappreciated quality of Jupiter. This is kind of like the thing that we're losing is really just removing something that was obscuring our vision, right? It was an obstacle to seeing the path ahead of us, and had it not been removed, we wouldn't see it. So not just if there's stagnation, if something's lost, if something's not working, or if we're actually losing something that we really value, connect with your intuition, tune in. Where's the path guiding you? Where is there a more enriching experience of home and survival and caring for yourself and getting what you need and feeling centrally grounded beyond the limits of the world that you've known? And this is where we touch in with our intuition. Are you called to travel? Are you called to go somewhere new? Are there resources or ways of thinking about your life beyond what you've known? Because Jupiter wants to bring in abundance. It wants us to feel very optimistic that life here is about growth. It's about being comfortable. It's about having everything that I need and feeling deeply safe and anchored in my life where I am. And that my life is connected to a greater meaningful journey of growth and expansion. So if you're losing, if things feel overly boring and stagnant, connect with that Jupiter principle and see where that path is kind of guiding you out of the limits of your known safe reality. Jupiter in Cancer in the 8th house. So Cancer in the 8th house, whenever I see a strong evolutionary emphasis in the chart, when I give a reading for Cancer in the 8th, if it's emphasized, I'll often describe the energy or the idea of a soul midwife. Because Cancer in the 8th can really be present, hold this deep, nurturing, caring space for the deeper evolutionary transmutational processes of the soul. Being with people in darkness, in death, in pain and suffering, the ability to care for the soul, for the evolutionary journey. So relationally, there's a great ability for commitment, for intimacy, for vulnerability, for going really deep, but also the great possibility for emotional entanglement for manipulation and being manipulated, right? Being manipulated and kind of entangled in another person's darkness, but that Cancer, I'm caring for you, but I'm kind of stuck in there at the same time. But also sort of like the dark, possessive, feminine archetype. I'm drawing you in because I'm vulnerable and unprotected and unsafe, and I need you to care for me. There can be this like way of manipulating by way of needing another person to tend to one's soul reality, but not taking responsibility for one's own inner soul emotional reality as well. So all kinds of forms of entanglements of abuse, abuser kind of dynamics can express in the Cancer 8th house. When you put Jupiter in there, the emphasis is on psychological honesty. To become aware of our compulsions, our addictions, to be honest with myself. Am I needing something from you and not taking responsibility? Am I acting in this way, but am I being honest? Or am I kind of giving into this tendency to caretake and to lose my soul to make another person feel loved and cared for because I don't want to leave them? Jupiter, how does that feel? Am I being honest with myself? There's a need to be radically, emotionally authentic and honest about one's own inner psychological reality. And that can be scary because a Jupiter honesty here would say, I'm going to put the truth first. And that truth might mean I'm facing these deep bonds of emotional attachment and addiction. There's a great Michael Singer quote, how do you know if you're addicted to something? Try not doing it for a while and see what happens, right? But we get into these loops of sexual emotional addiction with other people, and even just with substances. That Cancer in the 8th house can be all of the ways in which we avoid connecting with and dealing with the depth of emotional pain that we're experiencing. There can be deep betrayal, deep hurt, deep abandonment. How do we hold that for ourselves? How do we deal with that? The Capricorn 2nd house polarity signifies learning how to stand on your own 2 feet, learning how to be grounded and stable, learning how to care for yourself and to be self-responsible. So the honesty of Jupiter here is really looking at what is my motivation, what's really going on. And so speaking the truth, being able to emotionally identify what's really going on, and to have the clarity of mind to, in many cases, let go of the addictions or the dependencies or the entanglements that are keeping our soul energy hooked up. So that's one expression. There also might be an opportunity to actually grow by way of stepping into even deeper and greater vulnerability, right? So like Jupiter and Cancer in the 8th wants you to bare your soul. It's like, this is like the deeper, penetrating, deep emotional bonding that many souls might be deeply craving and wanting, but we can't access that if we're attached, right? If we're not honest, if we're not willing to let go, if we're not willing to be vulnerable, if we're not willing to risk the possibility of rejection or of, being left or not being cared for, we risk some of the deepest psychological fears with Cancer in the 8th house. But Jupiter says there's going to be no growth if you're not willing to risk the possibility of loss. So with Cancer in the 8th house, we're strengthening, I am at home within my own soul. Everything's going to come and go. Deep emotional bonds and stability and things that I depend upon, all that's going to come and go. And if I'm centered in my own soul, it'll make me stronger. And that doesn't mean I should be jaded and not be available for the possibility of meaningful human connection. This says there's a possibility here of forming relationships in our life where we can access a greater depth of our own soul through the honesty that builds a deep level of soul bonding and trust. But we have to be courageous and honest and willing to be authentic and honest with our own motivations and not pretend to be something that we're not or put up with any kind of lies in order for that to happen. Jupiter and Cancer in the 5th house. Here it's about being seen, expressing yourself, creatively actualizing. And the issue with Cancer in the 5th is we can feel overly protective or insecure and vulnerable. Am I going to be liked? Am I going to be received? The issue with Jupiter then becomes a matter of holding ourselves back. So there are two dynamics here. There can be this pessimistic attitude or shyness or vulnerability that keeps us from that courage and bravery that we really need to put ourselves out there more. And so we won't see all of the opportunities that there are for expansion and growth. So on the one hand, we need to be honest around our own creative impulse. What wants to birth? Now at birth, it's personal to us, but in essence, it's kind of not of us, right? It's coming through and we're facilitating it. think of a child, right? It's like it's creation, it's its own thing. But we have to be empowered as creative beings. So the Jupiter function here is to be intuitively connected to what's wanting to be birthed. What creative process and sort of special purpose is wanting to be actualized and expressed and explored right now. Your intuition might guide you, okay, I'm going to get on stage. I'm going to go to an open mic. I'm going to explore my long-standing, unrequited desire to be a stand-up comedian. There's a book I want to write. There's a project I want to put together. Or I want to spend more time with my children. If things are not fun, if it's sort of like Cancer, 5th house, it's safe, secure, but not creative, nothing's happening, no one feels seen and special, no one feels recognized. Jupiter's trying to give you attention towards where is there a calling for more love, more generosity, more creativity, more play, be it with yourself or your family, your kids. Where is there an opportunity to love and nurture and care for the unique blossoming of creation? Otherwise, we can kind of live in this sort of pessimistic, shy, or secluded attitude of not really sharing our heart, not really taking any risks, and not really having a lot of fun. So in the example of children, each child has their own unique creative essence, something that I explore a lot. Oftentimes, I've learned there's a need for me to just kind of drop in to the energy of play, to get on the level of the child and not always try to be the adult relating to it, but play with them and give them some time to actually play. Every single time, unless they're like processing a deep emotion, there's total responsiveness to it. And it's like, oh my God, this is so much fun. This is beautiful. And all of these sounds and animals and dances and fun things that I've never seen them do come out when I'm willing to step more into a creative, playful place. Just open up to see those opportunities. They say it's good for children to be bored because in the boredom, we have the possibility of kind of being creative with our environment. And at that same time, boredom is sort of, it's a healthy thing, but being in a chronic state of boredom might be because we haven't really become familiar with sourcing our own creative energy, right? Like we're always being entertained by a screen or by something on the outside. And so we need to also let go of these distractions. Cancer in the 5th house can also be very much entertainment focused, right? What do you do for play and entertainment in your home? Removing those forms of distraction actually allows for a lot more creativity and play in your own life. And just for yourself in your own journey, where is there a calling for more adventure, more excitement? In what ways are you being guided to put yourself out there and try something that you've never done before, but will actually make your life feel both a lot more fun, but that there's a sense of purpose. There's something that's focusing your attention on a process that's like, this is what I'm here for. This is where my energy wants to be. And I want to do this. I want to love this. I want to create this. Where's the play? Where's that sense of adventure? Connect with that. Jupiter and Cancer in the 11th house. Now, we have this issue in general of the nuclear family, which I think historically is a relatively recent phenomena, mostly in Western countries. Like a lot more Eastern cultures will have like maybe a nuclear, but there's like always your extended family. We live in a very weird world in most Western civilizations where family and community are like two different things. So you have your own like insular nuclear bubble, right? And then like maybe the school your kids go to or your church, right? They're like sort of all disconnected. Cancer in the 11th house wants to revolutionize and liberate the conditioned frames for understanding and how we live and experience family. So Jupiter says, get out of the known, get out of the ordinary. It's not just that there are other people out there that you might resonate with. There are other ways of thinking, other ways of understanding the energy and the experience of family and home and belonging. Break the wall. And so there can be a lot of discomfort actually with Jupiter in Cancer in the 11th house, literally with the known structure of your family experience or how you live as a human being breaking down. But you have to ask yourself the question, are your friendships, is your community, is your social engagement, are they really meaningful? Are they really nourishing? Do they feel relevant? Are we living in that kind of way where it's like people are connecting and supporting each other and holding space and, hey, I'll walk your children today and you can have some time to take a walk by yourself, or hey, I'm going to the grocery store, can I pick up some things, right? How much we have to hold on our own, and then like, what are our friendships for, right? What is community? What are friendships? Where do they, and how do they actually operate in our life? So getting really honest about sort of the status quo of our life. I think there's a greater potential for a deeply meaningful and authentically relevant sense of home and belonging with Jupiter and Cancer in the 11th. We just have to be willing to think outside of the box for ourselves, actually. So I have Jupiter in Cancer in the 10th and also in the 11th. So it's hovering both of those houses. So for much of the time that Jupiter will be in Cancer, it's going to be in my 11th house. Something that is happening here, we got our eviction notice, right? So we're exploring where we're going to be next. But what's interesting is the rent is so expensive. It's gone up since we started, right? And we have a bigger family. And it's sort of like the greater question, are we just going to recreate the same structure? There's a deep intuitive sense that there's something better, something more. There's another way of living. And even though Jupiter isn't in my 11th house, I'm really feeling that. Like I'm feeling like, oh, there's something yet emerging right now that might take some time. But I'm very curious about what would it be like for my experience of family to not happen in a bubble. It's something I think about a lot. So whether or not you have a family, it's like community and home now become unified. So think of Jupiter here as an opportunity to expand beyond the bubble of your own familial conditioning, and it may not be biological. There are other people that simply resonate with your own vibration, a sense of belonging, where you create something together. And what's cool about home and family, it's like, it's not just biological, but there are ways of caring for each other, of feeding each other, of learning how to share, where we all are cared for and we get our needs met, and there's nurturing and there's care and there's support and there's a familial sense, because we're all thinking out of the box. And we're willing to just kind of tune into, what is another way of doing this, right? How can we take care of each other in a better way? It blows my mind, when I go on walks and I pass hundreds of houses and I think about, in these hundreds of houses, there are hundreds of toilets and blenders and lawnmowers or whatever things people have in their homes. Like how, it's like, one, we can just share resources. It'd be so much easier if we just thought in a communal sense. How much effort, energy, and resource and sort of personal isolation is required to kind of live these insular worlds where we have so much that we can give and share. That's why I love connecting, like my neighbor right over there, such a different person, very different soul, different lifestyle, everything's different, right? But we care for each other, He'll sometimes go and blow the leaves in front of our house, and I saw him once and Michelle made this delicious food and I asked him if he wanted some of it, and it's just, there's a sense of we're caring for each other, and more doors, more possibilities open up when we're willing to be friendly and inclusive and to consider our idea of home as beyond just the nuclear bubble that we're so conditioned by. Jupiter in Cancer in the 3rd house. Here, this is about learning, about expanding our insight and our understanding of our reality. We have to appreciate that what we learn about, the logical frameworks for how we understand our reality, are grossly limited by our own subjective thinking and the emotionality that we bring into our learning process. We take in the information that we're emotionally ready to or willing to take in, and we can't hear, literally the physiology of hearing being a 3rd house, that which we're not emotionally available to hear. So logic, information, data itself might be incompatible to the structures of security that we've established in our mind. And this is why you really can't argue anything based on facts and data alone, because the Jupiter and Cancer in the 3rd dynamic is we're going to interpret, believe, and internalize all of the information according to what we're wanting to see in our own reality. So on the one hand, we can be living in a very grossly limited framework where our thoughts and how we're mapping our world is very limited. This is both in terms of like gathering data and information, but just think of it locally, like our map of the world that we live in, right? Like right now I'm sitting here in the main city park in Sonoma and decided to find a hopefully quiet place to record the rest of this video. In my mind, I have a map, right? Like when I think about where I live and all the places that exist, there's like a particular framework. If I were to create driving directions, I would map the driving directions according to what it's like to drive in a car. The directions for walking is different because when you're walking, you're more available to more experience. You can see things and you're kind of open to experiences that you really wouldn't be open to or able to have if you were driving. Like when I walk, I notice the shoelaces on the wire. I notice all kinds of details, how the sidewalk feels, and I learn more about the neighbors and I see them. I can even have conversations. So we connect more intimately with our reality when we're willing to explore the map in a more intuitive way. And this would mean not just becoming familiar with sort of the mundane, predictable ways of thinking. So if you extend this to how we learn, think of it as news media or the mediums that we follow for information or the, social media posts. Jupiter in Cancer in the third house actually invites a little more engagement. It's about intellectual honesty. Ask questions. Well, where does this come from? Is there another way of thinking about this? What about this source? And actually gathering information, I tell you, for the most part, we don't learn anything new unless we're wanting to learn something new. And in terms of our local environment, what if we put the, third house as vehicles or vehicles of communication? What if we put that away, the typical ways in which we think, and we allow for something new? Basically, your life wants to provide new insight, new learning, new experience. But perhaps we've been walking certain paths that haven't allowed us to see that. So are there classes, courses, books, questions, places you want to walk, but metaphorically you haven't been able to see it because you've been in your car? What would it look like to literally and or metaphorically get out of the car and walk or get on a bike? Pathways and experiences and conversations and ideas and thoughts that you wouldn't have if you weren't open to exploring new routes. Jupiter's intuitive. It even kind of likes the experience to some degree of getting lost, not literally lost, but what's happening with Jupiter is we don't know where it's going. It's a pilgrimage. Whereas the third house, we have a map. So what's implicit in this is we don't want to have the map all figured out. You want to feel like there's some sort of unknown, adventurous, yet to be realized quality to the map itself. There are alleyways and things that you've never experienced unless you haven't mapped in your consciousness. When you think about the emotionality of Cancer, there are narratives and stories and thresholds of experience that come from angles that you've never seen because you've never walked there. So your world and your learning can become much more expansive. And if you're a writer, if you're a communicator, the ways that you've been thinking, the ways that you've been communicating, the things you talk about, perhaps there is something more expansive and authentic to be articulating and sharing and addressing that is more true to who you are and what you're actually interested in. An example of this would be a journalist that's been writing about some kind of story of something happening in the world, and then it's like I'd rather actually go there. And third house has travel in it, much more than people realize. The quality of travel in the third house is when we travel, we're going to be adopting to the environment and acclimating to the world there and learning the language, but it doesn't exclude the possibility of long distance travel. It's just in a third house way, right? We're becoming familiar and acclimating socially to that environment. So let me travel there and actually buy a cup of coffee there and talk to the people. There's so much more to learn if we're more emotionally authentic and available and engage in the learning journey in our own authentic way. Jupiter and Cancer in the ninth house. And this really highlights the Jupiter-Cancer archetype emphasized in the ninth house, repeating the Jupiter energy. It's simply true that the strength of our emotional convictions, our beliefs relative to our social, religious, philosophical conditioning, upbringing, what we're familiar with, that forms our identity. I am a Jew. I am a this person. So this is why we're going to, in general, at certain levels of consciousness and states of security, we're going to find that people that come from a certain kind of emotional, familial background that are going to identify with the beliefs and the stories and the narratives of their people, of that background. And of course, the journey is to expand beyond that, to not be limited to our own little ethnocentric, religious, or social bubble where we can't see the larger story. In the ninth house, we're expanding into unknown lands, territories, places, experiences that are beyond the threshold of what we've yet to realize. But Cancer, I want to stay safe and protected, and therein lies the complexity and the tension of Jupiter and Cancer in the 9th house. We need to allow home to be a true, authentic journey of ever ongoing expansion and realization of the truth. And that means realizing that our personal experience of home and belonging, while it's deeply authentic for ourselves, the moment we begin to build those bonds of resonance and connection with that which is foreign, it then creates a situation where that which is foreign now becomes closer. And I shared that story about being at my friend's home where his mother was slim, but my mother was heavy. I thought about it after I shared that. What made his mother ultimately feel more motherly to me, I think in time, is my growing sense of familiarity and connection, right? Being cared for, being nurtured, the bond that I was able to experience with his mother is what actually established a sense of, oh, this is a motherly energy as well. I can feel at home here. What's foreign is foreign until it's understood, until it's known. In fact, when it's not known, when it's not understood, it's far away, it's different, it's other, and I'm scared, I'm alienated, I don't belong there. I just received the most touching message from my friend Georgia, who I did an interview with recently on my channel. I highly recommend, encourage everyone to listen to it. It's one of the most important things I've ever posted, and I'll be doing more conversations like that. She is an astrologer, and she also started an organization called All Our Relations that's literally providing food and care and love to people in Gaza that are under immense suffering. And she just got a message from one of the men that she's working with out there, who expressed a deeply loving message for me, that he's touched, not that he's surprised knowing there are people out there who are Jewish that care, but he's still touched by the compassion that exists. And it's encouraging because it's very easy to see Israelis and or Jewish people in general as not caring. And this is the calling for Jupiter and Cancer in the 9th. Get out of your home, get out of your world, get out of your beliefs, the little story or narratives that you hold on to, and expand your world to include much, much, much more. And that might mean being uncomfortable. That might mean facing the edges of, oh, them, they're over that. That's not where I belong. That's a different place. The language, the culture, the beliefs, I don't resonate with that. And the thing is, we create emotional assumptions. Like we see an Arab person or a black person or a Jewish person or an Israeli soldier, and the mind makes an association. And none of these associations are true in a universal sense. They're all generalization. I mean, it's like the essence of a stereotype. But the mind, Cancer, will have emotional memories and thus beliefs about what these people are. And so it's important that we just extend beyond the limits of our personal beliefs. I had this experience, it's common, and I want to speak to it. I post on Facebook frequently just different information about what's happening in Gaza, and recently there was a cafe that was blown up by the IDF. No reason, no cause, no pretext of there's Hamas people there or they're hiding weapons. Like, this is a cafe where people go, one of like the last places that kind of exists, sort of makeshift to charge phones and kind of be there, be together. And many people died, including children. And I post that, and the response that I get from a lot of my Jewish friends was, this is not true, or this is Hamas propaganda, you're believing a lie. And so we have the Capricorn third house polarity, which you can say is like hard, cold facts and evidence, like documentation, data, information. But we cannot take in something that emotionally we're not available to take in, right? And so a teaching with Cancer in the 9th house is don't argue your truth, because we have to have a direct experience of personal realization. You can't, be evangelical about it to convince and convert other people to your belief system or your perspective. We don't learn or take in anything until something in our emotional body. That's why that personal human connection is so deeply important to me. And I want to, again, give a plug for All Our Relations. It's one of the few charities that are out there. It's feeding people, but it accepts donations to buy the food. And it's one of the few organizations out there that are truly vetted, meaning there's a lot of scams out there, people taking advantage of the situation. They have a system where they actually connect directly with people in Gaza and form human connection, human relationships with the families, with the people. Ask for ID. If you live in Gaza, you're going to have ID with you. Everyone there has ID with them. Get into a live WhatsApp, phone call, so you're actually in live, versus some guy scamming on an Instagram account trying to get your money, right? So it's actually going, currently they're serving 21 families, and these 21 families, because there's a lot more of an extended family unit out there, are serving other people in their family unit. So it's a very humble, small organization, but really focusing on providing solid care and direct human connection. To me, that is really the essence of Cancer in the 9th house, and it couldn't be more important right now. So I'm going to post that in the description below. And once again, please check out my recent video with Georgia on that. One more thing to say about Cancer in the 9th house, just in thinking of it in terms of our spiritual journey or our ongoing realization of the truth, think of like a meditation practice. We become familiar with our beliefs and our ideas. Oh yeah, my teacher told me that if I do this, I'll have this experience, but like, are you experiencing it, right? Like the Jupiter question is, are you actually having an experience of it? Or is it a belief system? Many people live lives where we follow a path and the path isn't actually taking us anywhere. It's almost like the path is just the thing that we're trying to affirm. It's like, I believe in the path, but we don't actually question ourselves honestly and authentically if we're getting anywhere with the path. So there needs to be an honesty and sincerity around our experiences and our practice, and if the beliefs and our ideas are really taking us somewhere, to be authentic. What's my goal? What do I want to learn? What do I want to experience? And to be able to ask questions and be sincere about where is our path really calling us? Is there a calling towards a journey, a threshold of experience? This might mean stepping out of the teacher, student-teacher relationship, or the ways in which we've been practicing and studying. Maybe there's a greater, bigger path that wants to open up that's more relevant to who we are and the way that our journey truly wants to unfold, how our awakening naturally wants to unfold according to our nature. Jupiter in Cancer in the 6th house. The issue here is we're like caring for your family, your health, or your healing practice where you do, prenatal care work or massage or, cooking for people, taking care of your kids when they're sick, where it can either just become a chore and you're just going through the motions and it's like you're constantly cleaning up a mess, or it becomes a matter of neglect because it's so messy and there's so much to do and it's overwhelming and you feel emotionally overwhelmed. There can be a high level of stress and or dysregulation in this signature. Jupiter wants us to see that there are other ways. We have the possibility of expanding our understanding, our interpretation of healing, where it's less about getting the job done, but more so how can we improve and bring more compassion, more nurturing, more care. So imagine if you're a healthcare provider. Jupiter says, are there classes? Are there trainings? Are there techniques or practices or perspectives that you want to explore that open up the door to how you see care? Seeing a chiropractor recently, and my work with this chiropractor really helped me to realize what I'm needing personally is a more intuitive and gentle attunement to my whole body field. Like my body exists within the field of my soul. I didn't want to be related to just as a body. I felt like there was something deeper that I was needing. So I'm exploring more energetic oriented work, but also that deal with alignment. And I know there are many different modalities out there, but it makes me think of Jupiter and Cancer in the 6th house from the perspective of healing can feel more authentic. Like, oh, I'm not just following some kind of belief and, way of being that I'm just used to. Jupiter says, step outside of your healing practice. Open up to other ways of thinking, other ways of looking at the body, of health, of self-care, because there's so much more than what you know. But as per all things Jupiter, we need to be able to kind of let go of an existing belief system. And that could be an example of like the allopathic mindset will be the allopathic mindset, and the any kind of mindset will be the any kind of mindset. And so every problem has a solution in correlation to the nature of said problem. But define the problem a little bit differently, and there's a new solution. And this means bringing more care, more empathy, more presence, more emotional intelligence and attunement into what we see as a problem. Because we're feeling into it more holistically. What's the invitation for healing? How can we improve this reality to feel safer, more well, more healing, not just a thing to fix? Otherwise, Cancer in the 6th house will feel very stressful, like there's always a crisis to clean up. But we can actually improve how we live and like the whole culture, the ways in which we approach healing and care to a way that feels a lot more authentic and helpful and relevant to who we truly are. The other dimension, if you just think about Jupiter is always pushing us to the edge of the unknown, where there's a new experience, something we haven't yet known, because the journey is about stepping into the unknown and we haven't been there before. And so there are going to be answers that we've never heard, because on this pilgrimage of life, we haven't experienced it all. So there's some element of letting go of control, right? Which might mean actually feeling more emotion, right? Many of the ways that we deal with Cancer in the 6th house is through control. I'm going to manage every problem, give a solution to everything. But that ends up becoming a matter of not really learning and not really growing, because we're so focused on control. Really, that control is the other side of the coin of being overwhelmed and just like not doing anything. They're both kind of ways of dealing with not being present or intimate with. So this transit might offer an amazing expansion in all the ways that we are caring to. Think of the 6th house as apprenticeship. So anything in the 6th house is what we're improving and apprenticing for. So an apprentice for Cancer, an apprentice for all things caring, nurturing, tending, feeding, holding. That's where we're improving our skill set. Jupiter says there's a lot more than what we've known. All right, Jupiter and Cancer in the 12th house. I'm going to start this one with a little story. So Ram Dass, who I've spoken about a lot, he has Jupiter and Cancer in the 12th house, actually squaring the nodes. So, Jupiter is like the guru or the principal of the teacher. So this is a great story to exemplify this Jupiter and Cancer in the 12th house energy. He was once with a group of people traveling, and he wanted to see his guru, but his guru was nowhere to be found. No one knew where his guru was. His guru wasn't at the ashram, and so we had no way to find him. So he just kind of had to let go and trust, because he knew that the guru is everywhere. It's not local to a place. Like the guru has a body, but like the principle, the essence of what he is universal, right? So he knows that he'll go where he's meant to go, and he'll find the teacher in whatever form, in whatever way it's meant to, on the journey. So he just let go and decided, hey, let's go to this place. I've been wanting to go here. This one random place. Maybe he's never been there before. Right? So they drive however long it took to get there. And when he gets there, his guru is there with a bunch of his disciples. And one of the disciples said to Ram Dass, we've been waiting for you. Now it appears random, right? Like I just picked some random place, but actually it was not random. It was deeply imminent and relevant. Like you were not lost. You were always where you've needed to be. And the hand of God has been and is completely guiding you. Like that's such a powerful teaching in unconditional surrender and total faith and trust in the higher truth and principle of the guru, of the teacher, capital T teacher. And one of the existential issues with Cancer in the 12th can be that sense of loss, like where's home, like the deeper, tender part of our human being kind of being ambiguously ignored and neglected, not being cared for. It can have a very strong orphan archetype where that is intended to, and it can really bring up a deep sense of feeling lost and neglected in an essential way. Not really knowing what to do with our human emotional quality. We can be giving and serving and caring for a lot, but even kind of be sacrificing ourselves and martyring ourselves in the process. That's one dimension of it, right? At the same time, there can be this deep faith in universality to Jupiter and Cancer in the 12th. The key is to really bridge the two, to bridge the universality with the immanence of our direct human experience, so that divine love is imminently, directly available and present for us. In the same way that when a baby cries, mommy or daddy will pick up that baby, it'll be fed, it'll be cared for. That divine love is present for us in that way. So it's a deep dive into trust, into faith. But we have to be willing to kind of be alone or kind of go into the dark. There's a surrendering to the truth that we can't see. There's a lot of faith and trust in that, and being on the journey where we just have to cry out to the universe, but trust it. Now the key is not being in this hopeless despair of restless seeking and who's gonna save me or protect me. Because that's not faith and trust. That's almost like being disconnected from our relationship with Creator. It's being willing to not know, to not have the answer, and to not map out the specifics, but to just trust the truth of it. It's like where the prayer is offered unconditionally, knowing that love is here, and so we get to know that we're at home. So I'm just gonna go here. This is where I'm guided to go. And that's exactly where the teacher is. Reminds me of this other story that I think I've shared here before. There was a man that was in the Amazon with a tour guide, wanting to go to the lost shaman of the lost tribe to drink this sacred brew. And they're traveling and they couldn't get there, and he's far from home and he doesn't have his comforts and he feels unprotected and, he's tired. He just wants to go home. Finally, he says, you know what? Let's just go swimming in this little lake over here, this body of water that they found. Let's just go and rest there and swim and relax. And he's in the water and it's so relaxing, it's hot, and he just feels so refreshed. And he says to his tour guide, you know what? If the whole journey was just to get here, it would be worth it. Because he was able to receive the love, the care, the relaxation, the gift, the beauty of that moment. He was at home right there. In the wilderness of this journey of not knowing where he's going, he was at home right there. And of course, as all good stories go, in that moment, the lost shaman of the lost tribe showed up and then took him to a place that you could not find on your own. It's like it didn't exist on a map. You can't GPS it. It just existed somewhere in space. And the story goes on. He wanted to drink this brew. And the shaman said to him, you already drank the brew. And the guy said, what do you mean? I never drank this. He said, yes, you did, with your first breath. He said, if you understand your breath, this brew can teach you who you are. And if you understood your breath properly, your breath could also teach you who you are as well. It's like bringing this amazing, miraculous divinity into the present moment. How could we ever feel neglected or unloved or uncared for if we know this about who we are and about what this world really is? In the same sense, we will know ourselves to feel deeply nourished and have this immense compassion and care that we can offer to others. So Jupiter here is asking us to expand outside of our hopelessness, our despair, our fear. We may not know where it's going, but there is an underlying teaching and truth that's guiding the way. This is a great time to go within, to really deepen our relationship to the divine. And it might also mean there's something for you to express. There might be expressions of love and teaching that want to come through you. We might find ourselves becoming an emissary, an agent, a messenger, teacher, Jupiter, of a higher universal compassion and love, where we're connecting to this divine universal principle and we're guided to bring forward these teachings or these ways of being that will, Ram Dass's teacher said, feed people, love people. Like that's his core teaching. Love, serve, remember. His instructions to Ram Dass were, Ram Dass, love everyone and feed people. So to actually learn who we are by becoming like that source of love. So we learn who we are by giving from the truth of what we are. Not just seeking, I'm lost, help me, but it's like, I want to be and exemplify and live as I am. That is the only way that we know. There's a teaching in A Course in Miracles that we only understand ourselves by extending the love that we are. So miracles are extended. And in the extension of the miracles, we receive the healing because we're stepping into the field of our true nature, our true essence, which is energetically different than I'm lost, help me, fix me. Because we never bring ourselves into alignment with the truth. God doesn't answer entreaties to like, help me, I'm lost. It doesn't work. It's like that Mary Baker Eddy quote, standing in front of a blackboard and praying to the blackboard to solve the equation. We bring ourselves into a co-creative, trusting relationship with our source, and we earnestly seek to bring ourselves into alignment with who we are. That's like the relationship between our agency to be in relationship to the path, and then the humility of surrendering, and I'm letting go of control of the rest of it, and I'm allowing the path to take me. Well, this can be just such a deep, beautiful signature. Many of us might find ourselves deeply drawn within to get quiet, to listen to our dreams, to listen to our prayers, our hopes, to allow ourselves to be re-inspired. If there's like a bleakness or a mundanity, there can be this switch that flicks where suddenly we're inspired again. We see that life is a lot more loving and meaningful than we've otherwise remembered it or have known it to be. All right, everyone, this is my analysis of Jupiter in the Cancer through the 12 houses. Reminder, check out the description below for my sessions, for my services, and to subscribe to my newsletter. And if you're new to this channel, please subscribe and be welcome to send this video to someone who you think would benefit from these teachings. And as always, thank you so much for watching.